Globalization versus localization. In current IT world, there is a huge competition when it comes to software sale. If you have developed a system in, let's say, English, it's not enough because German people may demand it in German culture, whereas Japanese people demand the same system in Japanese culture. That means to overcome these challenges, we have to develop a system in such a way that it can adapt to multiple cultures. Now, this is where globalization comes to picture. Globalization is a process of designing and developing a software system in such a way that it can be easily adapted to multiple cultures and languages. Now, listen carefully. Globalization will not translate any system. Instead, it will tell us to develop a system which can be translated. Now that actual translating is called as localization. Once the application is developed which can be adapted to multiple cultures, that is globalization, that application is taken by some developer who will provide some kind of inputs to it and take it into the local level. Okay, in short, localization can be defined as it's the process of customizing an application. Remember, globalization is the process where we design and develop the application, whereas in localization we take already developed application which supports globalization and customize it so that it will be available for local clients. Now, customization may involve some inputs to the system. Inputs like we should tell the system how we call the word hello in Spanish, that is hola, and so on. So this is all about globalization and localization. Now let's look at the small application I have created. Let's press F5. It's a simple login UI with some labels, text boxes and a button. At the top section you can see current date has been displayed, and just below it, it has an informative message which says we should have at least 900 rupees in our pocket for successful login. Now if you notice, everything is fixed. For example, we are using English language here, we are using DDMMYY format for date, and we are using Indian cultures for representing amount. Now let's say tomorrow we want to make this UI available in Spanish language as well. Now what? For that we have to make couple of changes, and the very first change will be we have to convert this UI into a globalized UI which can be adapted to any culture and language. So let's see how we can do that. First, we have to find the way using which we will be able to replace the static contents at runtime based on cultures. And I want you to pause the video for a while and think how we can achieve it. Okay, what we will do is we'll just use a server control called label and use this static content as a text of this label. Now for demo purpose, I already have converted version of this ASPX page. What I will do is I will just take this ASPX and paste it here. I have updated I have converted all the static contents with label. Now there are two more things which need to be globalized. First, date time. Second, amount. For that, let's go to our code behind, and what you can see here is we are manually concatenating individual parts of our current date time and putting it in a label for display purpose. Now in order to make this thing globalized, we will use one of the method available in datetime class called toShortDateString. We can also see that we are using toString method of our required amount variable and concatenating it with rupees string. And for globalizing, what we will do is we will use an overloaded version of our toString method, which will accept a parameter called format, and we will pass C as parameter, which will indicate currency. Now let's run the application and look at the output. Now the UI we are having now and we had earlier have some differences. Differences in terms of datetime format. Before we were displaying it in DD, MM, YYY format, whereas now it has some other format. Similarly, there is a difference in terms of amount format. Now you know what's the reason for such kind of formatting changes? The reason is before these values were displayed using hard-coded formats, whereas now they are using culture set to my browser, and they were using the formatting of those cultures. Now let's change the culture and look at the output of our UI. For that, click on languages, click on set language preference, click on Costa Rica, say move to up, close the window, say OK, and click on the refresh icon. Now as soon as you click on the refresh icon, you will notice datetime format again changed to DD, MM, YYYY format, and amount changed to some other format related to Costa Rica culture. Now the one thing which is very strange here is our labels. They are still in English. You know why? Because till now what we did is called globalization. We have created a system which can be adapted to any culture or language. Now it's time to tell the system how we call the word username in Spanish, how we call the word password in Spanish, how we call the word in your pocket in Spanish. That means we will tell the system the meaning of every word in Spanish and translate the UI into Spanish language. Now that is called as localization. So let's do it. For that, we will use one of the feature provided by Microsoft called resource file. For that, close this window, go to design mode of your ASPX page and click on tools, say generate local resource. Now as soon as you do that, you will notice couple of changes in your ASPX page. You will notice a new property called meta::resource key is added to every server control with some values, and in your solution explorer you will notice a new folder called app_local resources get created with a file called as login.aspx.resourcex. Now just open that file and you will notice couple of key value pairs here. Now each key will represent a particular property of a server control. For example, this label resource1.text will represent a text property of this label control, and the mapping will be done with the help of this meta::resource key property, which has property called as label1resource1. Now in order to make this UI Spanish compliant, we have to copy this login.aspx.resourcex file and we have to create a duplicate copy of it, and we have to rename it to something else, that is login.aspx.es-cr.aspx. Sorry, it should be aspx.es.cr.aspx. Now let's do some changes in this newly created resource file. Just open it, just copy this value, current date is, put it in Google Translator, and let's see how this will be called in Spanish. This is something like this. Just copy it and put it here. Okay, we've done it. Now we have to do this for all the other key values as well. Now let's press F5 and look at our output. So here we have our complete Spanish based login UI. Now let's change our culture back to English and let's look at the UI. Click on OK, OK, and click on this refresh icon. So here we have our English based login UI back. Okay. Now you know the advantages of using local resource file. Now let's add a header to our application. That is label. We'll say welcome to, or just we'll skip this text here, and what we will do is we will just add this meta colon resource key property, and we'll call the key as lbl welcome. Just copy the key, open this login.aspx.resourcex, put it here, dot text will be welcome to quest pond. Okay, now open this Spanish file, resource file, just put dot text will be again welcome to quest pond in Spanish. Let's go to our login.aspx and let's put a break here. Now let's execute this application. What you can see is we have our header here. Now let's change the language. Let's change it to Costa Rica. Close it. Say OK. OK. Say F5. We have updated header here. Let's close it. Now let's say we have one more file here called registration.aspx. Okay, registration.aspx. Now let's copy this header label from login.aspx into registration.aspx and add a text here with a value, say temp value. Now you might be thinking that when we execute this registration.aspx, this value gets changed with the values in these resource files based on cultures, right? Let's see what exactly happens. Press F5, change URL to registration.aspx, press enter. What we can see here is value did not get changed, and reason for that is these resource files belongs to login.aspx, and so we will not be able to reuse the keys in these resource files for registration.aspx. But our requirement is we want to reuse those keys, and for that in ASP.NET there is a feature called as global resource files. For that, right click the project, say add ASP.NET folder app_global resources. Inside this folder create a new file of type resources and name it as display messages.resourcex. Now add a key inside this file with a name, say header message and a value welcome to quest pond. Okay, now let's close this resource file and let's create a copy of this resource file and name it as display messages dot es dash cr dot resourcex, where es.cr represents Spanish culture. Now let's open this newly created resource file and let's change this value to welcome to quest pond in Spanish. Now we have two versions of our resource file, one with English value and other with Spanish value. Now let's go to login.aspx and let's remove this meta colon resource key property
and let's add a text property with a value something like this: percentage dollar space resources colon name of our resource file, that is display messages, comma name of the key in the resource file, that is header message. Let's copy this label from login.aspx and paste it in registration.aspx. Now let's look at the output. For that, press Fi, say refresh. What we can see here is we have welcome to quest pond displayed at the top. Now let's change the culture and look at the output. For that, we will do say OK. Let's press refresh. What we can see here is our header label changed to Spanish. Now let's move to registration.aspx. We can see here the same message is displayed here. Now let's change our culture back to United States and see how it works. Say OK. Click on refresh. We are back to our English language again.
In order to achieve such kind of functionality where contents are displayed based on culture of a browser, we have to do one more thing. We have to set values of these two properties, that is UI culture and culture, to auto. We will talk about these properties in detail in coming up videos, as this video is intended only towards understanding the concept of globalization, localization, global resource files and local resource files. If you have any query, you can always write to us and we will always try to help you out. Thank you.